Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video. And in today's video, I'm going to be predicting the Canelo versus Ryder fight. If you're new around here, then you haven't subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do new like the video, and let's get straight into it. So, going into this fight, Canelo is 58-2 with 39 KOs, and Ryder is 32-5 with 18 KOs. This fight is for the IBF, WBA World, WBC, and WBO World Super Middleweight titles. Canelo's last fight was a win via unanimous decision versus Golovkin, and Ryder's last fight was a win via stoppage in round 4 versus Parker. Canelo's losses have come against Bivol in 2022 and Mayweather in 2013. Ryder's losses have come against Smith in 2019, Fielding in 2020, Arnfield in 2016, Blackwell in 2015, and Saunders in 2013. This is Canelo's homecoming to Mexico, the first time he's fought here since 2011, so 12 years since he's last been there. And I mean, if you've seen any of Canelo's other fights, you know even in America he brings massive amounts of fans, and so I'm sure in this is going to have a huge fan base for Canelo. Depending on how big the venue is, I'm sure it will sell out. But also on this card is Martinez versus Batista for the WBC World Flyweight title, in which I think Martinez will win via unanimous decision. Of course, he is recently had his loss versus, I believe it was Chocolatito, but I mean, since then he's managed to win and he's kept his title, and I think this is another fight that's just a contender, but not a very overly tough contender, and I think he'll be able to pass through this and then keep building his way back up. He's building his way back up nicely, and then keeping his title, and then I'm sure at some point he will get another big fight, if it's possibly with Chocolatito again or with somebody else. There's lots of good people in the flyweight division currently, and I'm sure there's going to be people wanting his belt. But going back onto the Canelo fight, so Canelo, as a fighter, possibly pound for pound one of the best currently, maybe not, but of all time, maybe. He's got so much technical ability, he's got such a high IQ, he's skillful, great combinations, capitalizes on any weaknesses, can come out can close out the show very well, sets up very well, in and out kind of fighter, explosive speed and power. I mean, that's just to say certain things about him. Got great head movement as well, got great movement in general. I mean, I don't really know what else you want me to say for Canelo. He is such a highly skilled fighter, high IQ fighter. The way he sets up his shots, and I mean, there's not many fighters with that IQ to be able to do little things. It's even just the subtle tweaks that he does, and it's just so it makes such of an impact, and it's just so impressive. And that's why I think anybody he fights is gonna be very tough night for them. And I mean, the possible, I suppose, negatives about him, there's people saying that he's possibly past his prime. 32 I believe he is now, and I mean, that's arguably maybe later prime or during your prime, as certain people will say. And I mean, they're going off like his past fight versus Golovkin. It wasn't the best of the performances for him. I mean, he was dominating the earlier rounds of the fight, did enough to win the fight by far, and I think he just coasts through fights sometimes, and I think he did this last fight because, I mean, he'd already beaten him once and he knows he could do it, and I think he just, coming off the loss, he just wanted a not easier fight, but a fight which he could show his technical ability without having to do too much, and that was what he did. And I mean, it was more than enough. And I mean, there was a couple bits in the later rounds where maybe he looked a little bit out of it, but still a very dominant performance. And so I wouldn't say he's past his best. I think fights like this will be fights where he's going to want to make a statement, and especially as it's his homecoming as well, and it's going to be fights where I think he's going to have to make a statement and maybe silence any haters, and them haters are always going to be there, to be honest. And I mean, unless he goes out and beats Bivol and beats Benavidez convincingly, I still think there's going to be them haters there always. And so I think he just can't overlook Ryder, is what I'd say, and just gotta keep doing what he can do and keep calm, I suppose, because the only times which I've seen him struggle is when he's not been able to find openings, and that's when he gets a little bit frustrated and probably doesn't fight to his best. And I mean, he did that he couldn't do that against Mayweather, he couldn't do that against Bivol, because their performances were just so amazingly good that there wasn't really any opportunities for him to capitalize on their mistakes, and that's something he does amazingly. But if the openings aren't there, then he can't do that. And like I said, in that Bivol fight and in that Mayweather fight, there was just no opportunities for him to really capitalize on anything. And so that's why, I mean, I don't think Ryder skillfully enough, not to discredit his ability, but I don't think he is at the level to be able to not have any mistakes in his whole fight, in a whole possible 12-round fight. And so I think Canelo is going to find openings. And I mean, there's possible things of, I mean, he's coming off the wrist surgery. That's something, that's a possibility of, will that affect him? Will that make him want to commit less because he's more scared about possibly injuring it again? Or is he going to, I don't know, is he going to be a bit more nervous when he's fighting? But that's a question mark. It's only a really little thing, to be honest. I'm sure it won't affect him too much. I'm sure he's been through worse, and so that's just something for, I suppose, in Ryder's favour. But let's speak about Ryder. So, of course, I would say he has no pressure for this fight because, I mean, he's the WBO interim champion currently. He's coming off that win versus Parker. It wasn't really a great fight. I mean, I think he was winning, but I mean, of course, it got stopped with Parker's hand injury, and I mean, I don't really believe that Parker should have quit, to be honest, because I think he could have carried on. But of course, I wasn't in there. I wasn't Parker. I don't know what he's feeling. But Ryder, I mean, he was winning that fight, and I would just say he has no pressure because Canelo basically had to take this fight, because otherwise he would have been stripped of his WBO belt, and I'm sure he didn't want to do that, or didn't want that to happen. And so, I mean, he's come into his backyard, Ryder. All the things are in favour for Canelo to win. And so, if Ryder does win, this is going to be a huge, huge upset for him and for boxing in general. It'll be one of the biggest British boxing upsets. And so, yeah, I would say he has no real pressure. I mean, he's been used to being the underdog. I would say he's probably underdog against Parker. Woodsy underdog, probably against Smith, and he put up a good performance against Smith, almost beat him. And so he's used to being the underdog. Obviously, they've not always gone to plan when he has been, but I don't think he is going to go there with any kind of pressure. Of course, he can take shots. He is a warrior. He's good at making opponents fight his fight, which I find interesting. I don't know if he could do that with Canelo, because Canelo, I think he has fought fighters similar to Ryder. I mean, of course, Ryder's a southpaw. That makes it a little bit different. But like I said, I think he has fought similar fighters to him. But I mean, possibly if Ryder can make it a war and makes Canelo want to trade with, I mean, possibly with his mindset at the moment. I mean, I know it's only recently he had that defeat. Canelo might be a bit more weaker minded and might want a war, but I don't think he will, to be honest. And I think Ryder will struggle to make him fight his fight. But of course, like I said, he is good at doing that. He can make opponents earn rounds. He's always going to be tough. He's dominating presence. He's composed. He's a momentum fighter. I think when things are going his way, he is going to be thriving, and it's just if he can gain that momentum against Canelo, because Canelo is so good at shutting down that momentum that anybody that he faces has, and it's just if he can gain that momentum or not. I would say he has a similar kind of body type to Canelo, so I suppose that means that Ryder's not going to be having to punch you up, or Canelo's not going to be having to punch you up, or have less of a reach. I think there's only a little bit of a reach difference, and so I suppose that's something that they might not be used to as much in this division. Ryder's, I suppose, negatives. I mean, he's going to have to be perfect, I would say, and that's going to take a lot. Similar to fighters Canelo's already fought, like I said, he's got a bit of a low guard, not going to go in his favour. Can admire his work at times, doesn't always fully commit to his combinations. Well, he'll commit to them, and then he'll just be like, just kind of sit at range a bit and just be like, okay, that was good. But then he's going to get caught with things on the counter, and if Canelo can use his head movement and use his countering ability, then he'll be able to capitalise on that. I would say Ryder's lost versus lesser opponents, and I think he's had tougher tests, even quite recently against lesser opponents, and I think that's not going to go in his favour either. Does sometimes struggle to find openings. Sometimes he can find them, sometimes he don't. Sometimes it is just based on his momentum and how much he has of that. And I mean, they're both experienced fighters. They've both been around for a while. They've both faced high level opposition, and so it's a good matchup. It's an interesting matchup. Of course, Canelo is the favourite for this one, and I think that Canelo will win via TKO in round 8. I think there's not many fighters which probably could get Ryder out, and I believe that Canelo is one of the only fighters that can get Ryder out because of how tough he is, but I think Canelo is Canelo. I think if he gets his combinations together, makes Ryder capitalise or be capitalised upon his own mistakes, and I would just see Canelo late stoppage. I don't think it'll be an early stoppage by any means, because I think Ryder might possibly have a bit of success in the earlier rounds, but yeah, I think Canelo will be too much in the end and will be able to get him out there like he has a lot of his other opponents. And then there's only real 2 matchups which I'd like to see Canelo next. Possible rematch with Bivol, but I would prefer to see Bivol versus Beterbiev, to be honest. So the one that I really want to see is the fight versus Benavidez. I think that really has to happen now that Benavidez has beat Plant, and hopefully should be the next one. But yeah, that's it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like if you did, like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.